Hi, welcome to episode 350 of the Corner of Knit and Tea. My name is Laura. I'm also known as Fluffy Kira on Instagram and Twitter. I blog over at thecornerofknitandtea.com, which is where every episode show notes will be. I have an Etsy shop called The Corner of Knit and Tea where I sell my handspun yarn and knitting patterns. Hi, how are you? It is Monday, October 18th. And I feel like I have hit a momentous occasion with 350 episodes. I started the podcast a little over 7 years ago, and I had no idea that I would continue it for so long or have such a wonderful audience of people watching. I had no idea I would make friends through the podcast and through Ravelry, and I just want to thank you for being here. If this is your first time, welcome. I don't know if I'll make it to 350 more, but we can see. And if you're a returning viewer, thanks for joining me today. Please stick around until the end. I have a little bit of a giveaway to celebrate 350 episodes, and I'll discuss that towards the end of the podcast. So hi, how are you? Fall has definitely arrived here in the Midwest. The leaves are changing. It is much cooler. It's now even getting into the 40s. That's in Fahrenheit in the morning. And I am enjoying pulling all my knits out of hibernation and wearing them. Today I am wearing my version of the Comfort Fade cardigan. That is by Andrea Mowry, who is Drea Renee Knits, and I knit mine in a kit from Zen Yarn Garden, and it is absolutely gorgeous. It's got my black, a red, and then a red and gray, and then kind of a silver at the top. And so it is not as much of a fade as others are. It's a little bit more defined and kind of bright colors, but I love them, and it is keeping me nice and warm today. It's probably only in the 50s outside, but of course I just love this season. So I have gotten a lot done this week. Unfortunately, not everything I can show you, but quite a bit. Oh, and I think I forgot one of my project bags. I'm gonna pause for just a moment and grab that right now. As I was saying, my crafting mojo is in full gear, and I have spent lots and lots of time crafting over the last week. So I have lots of little things to show you. Not as much not as many finished items as I had hoped, but still lots to show you. So let's dive right in. Today I am drinking thematically. I am using my Hello Kitty mug again, which I apologize for 2 episodes in a row. However, it is my Halloween mug, and I feel like I know I could use it at other times of the year, but I generally only use it in October, so I decided to bring it back this week. But in terms of themes, I am drinking Black Cat tea, and this is from the Friday Afternoon Tea Company. It's called Friday Tea. You can get it at fridaytea.com, and she is out of Seattle, Washington, and sells blends inspired by role-playing games and fandoms. And Black Cat is oolong tea, lemon peel, pomegranate seeds, and vanilla. So this is part of the Magical Girl collection. Don't underestimate girls. So I bought this a while ago to try because I love oolong tea and I like lemon as well. And who doesn't love vanilla? So I am drinking that in my Hello Kitty trick-or-treat mug. And that is delicious. That's a good afternoon pick me up. I still have a little bit more work to do when I'm done here. So let's talk about the knits. I have a finished object. I finished the Stay Soft shawl by Vera Valmaki. This is a triangular shawl. You work the first part of it in 3 parts. You start with this light green section, which is saguaro, named after the cactus. It is from Less Traveled Yarn. And then you do this section where the colors stripe, and my second color is Vinta. It is a nice charcoal gray. And then the final section is basically the rest of the charcoal gray. And then to add on a border, you pick a third color, and that is the colorway Transmutation, which is this great kind of, reminds me of oxidized copper or patina with greens and a little bit of turquoise and some rust colors, gold. And you work in an applied edging, sort of a garter stitch short row edging that connects, and you go all the way down, and then the finishing part, which is where I almost was last week, is to get the I-cord at the bottom. And as you can see, there is an I-cord at the bottom here, and then it goes through. You have left these stitches live on the needle, and you finish it off with the I-cord border. It has not been finished. All the ends are woven in while I decide precisely how I want to finish this. At first I thought I would just give it a quick wet block and be done, but the thing is that it is a garter stitch shawl, and I would like it to maintain some of that garter stitch squishiness. And sometimes when you wash and block items that are in garter stitch, they end up stretching out. So I might just steam block this, but I haven't 100% decided yet. This project did not use as much yarn as I thought it might. I got within about 15-20 grams of finishing the charcoal. I should have just finished it. And actually, I probably could have used a little more of the saguaro too. I think what I probably should have done is, and you remember I went back and forth about this, I probably should have added a few extra rows in this section so that then I could just finish the charcoal here and I could use up a little more of the saguaro. I only ended up using about 65 grams of the saguaro, so there's really a lot left. And although I am not at all unhappy, I mean, the shawl is very, very wide. It will be great to wrap around my neck. I am not at all unhappy about the proportions of the shawl. I just wish I had used more of the yarn because I would have liked to use as much of it up as possible. And my concern was that if I made the shawl too big, would I have enough to do the edging? And I had way more than enough to do the edging because I had another 30 grams left over. So basically, I think I used about between 750 and 800 yards in this shawl. I haven't done all the maying of my leftovers yet. And I just feel like I wish I could have used more of the yarn because it was 3 skeins at 438 yards apiece. And so I just wish I didn't have the equivalent of a full skein left over. What I haven't decided is I could make some matching mitts, which I might do, or I could make a hat to match as well, or I could just wait and use them in leftovers projects and for other things. So I haven't decided, but the yarn was really lovely to work with. It is their Dreamliner base, which is actually a BFL cashmere and silk, which I have never worked with before. Usually it's merino cashmere silk, and I can feel that it is a little it's a little less soft than it would be if it were merino, but it also feels a little sturdier and just ever so slightly more rustic. It's not that it's not soft, because it is. It's just also got a little bit of, not so much of a halo, but a little bit of a shine, which I really like, and I think that's because BFL is longer stapled. And I used 3 skeins, all on the same base, just different colorways from less traveled yarn. So again, this is Vera Valmaki's Stay Soft shawl. It is a great garter project. It's going to be nice and warm and cozy. And I love Vera Valmaki shawls. And they're just fun projects, and I always get compliments on them when I wear them. And so I love it. So this to be continued. I just need to figure out, I will probably steam block this and see how I like it, and as soon as I finished my next whip, which I will be sharing in just a moment, I definitely will be steaming that, so I'll probably hold it and just steam this then. So it'll be a few more weeks before it's really ready to go and I can take final finished pictures, but that is a project off the needles and done, and a little sooner than I expected. So let's talk about my whip. The project that should be getting most of my attention, and has not entirely this week, is the Excuse Me sweater, which I am knitting as a sample for Zen Yarn Garden. I am using 2 colors of their Nightshade worsted base, which is a base that is kind of, it has multiple plies, and one of the plies is black. So the yarn ends up looking a little bit marled. This is the Gia Spatter colorway, which is the colorway that I'm using. And as you can see, it's got red and orange and blue and purple. And you can also see the black thread in there that creates kind of a marled look. And then I am contrasting it with black. And as you can see, I'm using up my yarn balls at different rates, which I don't really understand. These started out as cakes bigger than my head. They were, I've been calling them queen cakes, and they are 5 skeins of yarn in one. So that is 500 grams and 875 yards in a single cake, and sizes up to a medium and maybe a large in the pattern can be eked out with just one of each color. So I will definitely have some left over. I selected to do the medium size because I didn't want to run close on my yarn, and I was afraid that I would run out or run super close and be sweating it. So I am making a size medium. I will have plenty to complete the project, and my guess is I'll have more of this one left over, but I'll probably have a little bit of the black as well. So let's show you what I've got. I had hoped to be a little bit further along on this than I am, but I worked on some other things at the beginning of the week to crank them out, and so I am just not quite there yet. So, as you remember, Excuse Me is a 2-color brioche sweater. That's why I have the 2 cakes of yarn. I am using the spatter as my forward dominant color on the outside of the sweater and the black as the background color. Technically, this sweater would be completely reversible when I'm done because brioche is, other than the fact that I'm going to weave my ends in on the inside, but I think it looks more interesting with the splatter on the outside. So you have this kind of askew collar created by brioche increases and decreases, as you can see here. And I can't decide how best to wear it. It is a long cowl neck or turtleneck because it wanted to be knit for 8 inches or 10 inches per the pattern. So I think it actually would also be kind of fun to cuff it down, and then you could kind of have the contrast section up around your neck. So I've posed it that way in a couple of the photos. Basically, you start with the cowl neck, and then let me get this straight so that it is facing front, and it's a little bit askew. So then it is a top-down pullover. You knit from the neck all the way down to the bottom, and then the bottom is finished off with a beautiful I-cord edging. I showed you this last week, and this week's progress is the first sleeve, which is picked up and knit down. It is knit down basically in the same brioche. However, the sleeve skews slightly because you do your decreases on the underside of the sleeve, and they are slightly different. They're mirrored for the right and the left sleeve, but so you can see that I am working through my decreases. The sleeves on this pattern are a little bit loosey-goosey in the sense that he gives you pretty specific instructions on how to do the pattern, particularly how to do the neck, how long you should do your neck for, and then where you should put your increases so you get your sleeves. And then kind of down the body, and of course he says you can knit it as long as you want, but the shaping is actually built into the pattern because you're creating a line that's going to bias the fabric on the front, and so you are kind of creating that shaping. On the sleeves, he kind of says, okay, here's roughly how you're going to do it, and do it as long as you want and decrease as many times as you want. Which isn't as prescriptive as I might have liked in a pattern that I was going to knit for to be sold as kits for people to knit. So in the pattern, he mentions that he knit his sleeves to be 22 inches. And 22 inches on me would probably practically reach the floor. I'm joking. But Stephen West is a very tall, very long man. And so that was a little bit more than I needed. Most of the sweaters that I knit in the medium size, I knit with approximately an 18-inch sleeve. So that was sort of my starting point, and I decided that I wanted to remove about 10 stitches from the top of the sweater sleeve down to the cuff. And there wasn't a real scientific method on that because I didn't do the exact math. I just decided I definitely wanted my sleeve to taper a little bit, but I also didn't need it to be super tight around my wrist. I wanted it to be kind of a little bit loose and flowy. I think Stephen describes the sweater sleeves that he knit, and he knit a 22-inch sleeve and decreased 12 stitches over the course of the sleeve. So I figured that I was roughly in the same ballpark. So then I did a little bit of math on paper. Well, I started in my head and then I went to paper to figure out approximately how many inches I wanted to knit every time I wanted to, so that I could sort of evenly space out my decreases. So what I ended up doing is I ended up knitting about 4 or 5 inches. I think I knit 4 inches for the first part, just leaving that kind of wide up here, and then starting to taper after that, and then I have tapered every 3 inches after that. So I will finish with my tapering maybe an inch or 2 before the end of the sleeve. Figuring out exactly how I want to do that. And my plan is to, after I knit one more repeat of the 3-inch section and the final decrease, then to try the sweater on and see where the sleeve falls and see if that's where I want it. And then I can add the extra inch or 2, and then the sleeve will be finished off with an I-cord edging. And what I did to keep the spacing even on the sleeves is I measured my gauge, and I calculated the number of rows it would take me to reach that measurement. And so it turned out to be 15 rows for approximately 3 inches, which is roughly the gauge the pattern calls for. And so every 15 rounds, I do my decreases. So I have kept track of it. I have made it even. There's no like forgetting the decreases, you know, those kinds of things. So like I said, the sleeves are a little bit loosey-goosey, decide your own way. But I should be done with this sleeve in the next couple nights. And then I will just do the other sleeve in just as I did this one. And my hope is that I will finish both sleeves by next week. I hope. I would really, really, really like to crank this one out and get it to the photographer so it could be a kit that comes out before Christmas. So that is my plan. My sweater looks thusly. When I am done, I will take photos on my mannequin, and then because it actually is going to fit me, I'm going to take a couple photos on me and see what it looks like, and that might determine whether I want to knit it again for myself, because this has been a fun knit, and I'm loving the finished object. And actually, I think I would lengthen it a little bit and make it tunic length, and then wear it with leggings, leggings and boots all through the winter. It would be my most worn object. So again, this is the Excuse Me sweater by Stephen West, and I am knitting it in Zen Yarn Garden Nightshade Worsted, again in their speckle. It's the Gia Splatter, one of a kind, and Midnight, which is basically just black. And there's that gorgeous fabric for you. So hopefully you'll only have to see this one more time, and then we'll be done, and I will be excited to get that off my needles. So the remainder of my knits focus on Socktober. And Socktober is just a name that a lot of knitters give October, making October sock month. It is when the weather changes. It is when our toes get cold, and at least if we're living in the northern hemisphere, and we like to focus on socks. So I have 2 sock projects going right now, and I have made a little bit of progress on them this week, not a ton. So last week I showed you a personal project that I should not be working on, but of course it's so fun, who cannot? And it was a project, it was a kit that I had gotten from Knitterly Things that was a whole bunch of leftover balls of sock yarn, just little bits of her leftover stripy sock yarn. She does wonderful stripy sock yarns, Knitterly Things, and her base is called Vesper, and she does gorgeous colorways. She's released a bunch for the holidays, and she's working on those right now. Anyway, she released these little kits in time for Halloween, sort of to make Franken Socks, which is just a term for mix and match socks. And like I said, she included all kinds of little bits and pieces from previous kits. So last week I showed you my start on the sock, and that is, yeah, that's this one. And I put on a couple more stripes on this sock. I think I was maybe at the green last time, so I put the blue and the purple, which kind of finished the pattern repeat of that one. So I have not made a lot of progress on this particular sock. However, I went ahead and started the second sock. So, and actually I ran out because the blue, I didn't have 2 full repeats of the color pattern. So this one has a little bit of purple on here, and this one does not. So I will have to do something else to make this one match. That's fine. I knew that making these exactly match from little leftover bits and pieces was not going to be 100% possible, and I figured I would take it as it comes. That said, I didn't want to completely different socks. I guess maybe that has its appeal as well, but I'm a little too type A for that. I like my things to be matchy-matchy. Anyway, so I haven't decided whether I'm going to pick up in the next color that has a purple at the start so that I can kind of fill that, because there is another colorway that has a purple that's a little bit similar. So I could sort of make that work, or I haven't decided yet. I also haven't decided how much longer I want to go before I put in the heels. I think I would like to make these long socks, and I do have quite a few more minis. So again, not much progress on the original sock, but I went ahead and did a whole second one, so I can kind of keep these in tandem, and hope to maybe get down to the heel this week on both of these, because it's probably just one more mini that I'll work through. You know, one more set of striping, so it's probably another 5 to 7 stripes before I go into the heel. And she included in the kit a skein of semi-solid. Mine is in a green. I don't know what the name of this green is. Nothing came with names. It was just lots of little leftover bits, plus this is probably a 20-gram mini, so that you can use it for cuffs, heels, and toes. And I haven't decided if I'll use it for toes, in part because I don't know if I'll have enough. But also because I might just do the stripies all the way down the toes. I wanted the cuffs to be offset with the green, and my favorite heel on a top-down sock is a heel flap and gusset, and I didn't want to distort the striping sections with that, so, well, I guess they'll be a little distorted when I pick back up, but I didn't want to distort it too much around the heel, so I will use these for the heels. I just haven't decided on the toes yet. So those are my Halloween socks. Not looking super likely they'll be done by Halloween, unless I can crank out the rest of my sample projects this week, in which case next week I can spend all week working on them and maybe finish them just in time for Sunday the 31st, in which case I'll have to show them to you after Halloween, but we'll see. So the other sock projects I have on the needles that I can show you is that I am working with Zen Yarn Garden this month. We are teaching a How to Knit Socks class, and we are using the Rye pattern by Tin Can Knits, which is a free pattern on Ravelry or on the Tin Can Knits website, and it is for a worsted weight pair of socks. And we selected it because I figured, well, I suggested that we use something in worsted weight because the first time you are knitting socks, and potentially the first time you are mastering DPNs or learning how to do a heel turn, I thought it would be easier to do it on kind of a heavier weight yarn with larger needles and not have to fiddle with fingering weight yarn and tiny needles. Those of you who are master sock knitters may or may not agree with me, and certainly wouldn't need to, but that's what we're doing this month. And so Zen Yarn Garden just adopted a really adorable French bulldog that they named Xena, and actually I have a little picture of her here because it was on the card. So this is Xena. She is the newest member of the Zen Yarn Garden family, and they went ahead and dyed a colorway based on her. She is black and brown, and I will show you in just a minute because I wasn't sure what it was going to come out like and whether I was going to like it, and it's actually super, super pretty. I should have known that. They're a genius with color. They dyed it on 2 of their bases, and normally when you purchase a kit, you select one or the other of the bases, and because I didn't select a kit because they sent one to me so that I could teach the course, or help teach the course, they sent me both bases. So I have one on Serenity Worsted, which is a 75-10-10 superwash merino cashmere nylon, and one which is Nightshade Worsted. It's the same as in the Stephen West sweater, and that is 100% superfine merino. So those are Zen Yarn Garden and the colors that I am using. And sadly, I only have one sock to show you. I worked on a second one last night at Knit Night, and as I kept working down the sock, I thought, you know, this is weird. I mean, because it's a worsted weight sock, I didn't cast on that many stitches, or certainly not as many stitches as I would use for fingering weight. And I thought, you know, this is weird. This one feels really tight. The other one didn't feel really tight. There's a reason it feels really tight. When you don't cast on the right number of stitches, it feels tight. So all of my work had to be ripped out last night. So I will show you the first sock, and I am up to the point, tomorrow night is the 3rd tutorial. Zen Yarn Garden does tutorial Tuesdays every Tuesday, and every Tuesday in October. These are, I should say, these are free to attend. You can register by going to the Zen Yarn Garden website, and you do not have to purchase. You could knit along with us using worsted yarn from your stash at home. You do not have to buy the kit, and the tutorials themselves are free. So for tutorial Tuesdays, we broke down knitting socks. So the first week we talked about the methods by which you might want to knit your socks, whether you want to use DPNs or magic loop or 2 circs. And then we talked about sort of the cast on for the cuff. And then this past week, they discussed, I wasn't on this past week, but they discussed doing the heel flap and the heel turn, which is the tiny little bit at the bottom of your foot that sort of makes the part that cups your heel. And the heel turn requires lots of instructions and is not hard if you follow the instructions, but the first time you do it, it's not intuitive if you're not sure about which piece of the sock you're really making. So we went through that, and then this week they're going to talk about gussets and gusset decreases. So I have knit mine basically up to and ready for the gussets, and this is my first sock. So this is the gorgeous colorway on the Serenity sock. And like I said, it is blacks and browns, and a little bit of white. And I didn't think, I thought it was going to be more, splotchy or spotty. Like, I thought it was going to come out a little bit more, I don't know why, but I thought it was going to come out a little bit more Dalmatian-like, just like real spotted. But it is super subtle and beautiful, and I really like it. And this would be, a great colorway if you have a man in your life who likes really like muted and neutral sock tones. This would be perfect. Anyway, so this is my sock so far, and of course the Rye has the garter stitch panel on the front, and so I've done my cuff, and I did part of my leg, and then I did my heel flap and the heel turn. I had to make some decisions about how I wanted to do these socks because of the fact that I had 2 balls, and this is the Serenity base, which is the merino cashmere nylon, and this is the Nightshade base, which, as you can see, still has that 3rd marling, and I was afraid that they were going to look super, super different, and so I was trying to decide whether I had enough in one ball. The pattern calls for in the adult sizes 200 or more yards for socks, and they make kind of a taller sock. I mean, the cuff is lengthy. I think the cuff is about 6-7 inches, and so I was trying to decide if I could get a pair of socks out of one ball, which is 185 yards. I do have very small feet. My feet are size 6.5, so I knit my socks pretty short, but I wasn't sure if I could do it doing the full leg, and I couldn't decide what I wanted to do, whether originally I was going to do these 2 at a time as well, sort of work them in tandem, and so I thought about whether I should make the leg shorter. So I did make the leg quite a bit shorter on my socks, which is fine because I don't need my socks to be super tall, especially since the foot is super short anyway. So I worked on this one, and then I was like, you know, I should just knit the other sock in the other colorway just so people can see how it knits up, and then I'll have one of each, and I don't know if I'll wear them if they're mismatched because, as I said before, I'm a little bit type A and I kind of like my things to match. I wish I didn't feel like that, but I do. So I thought, okay, I'll finish the first one in this one, and then I'll finish the second one in this one. And so, like I said, you can see all the yarn that I knit off this ball and then went back onto it when I ripped out the sock that I knit last night. So by next week, there will be 2 socks. I can't tell you what yarn they'll be in, but I can tell you there will be 2, and by next week I will have knit all the way down because we will be getting ready to talk about knitting the toe and grafting the toe. So basically I'm going to knit the whole foot on this sock this week, and then I'm going to knit everything but the toe on this one. So those are my other Socktober socks. And I will be working on that this week. Again, the pattern is Rye by Tin Can Knits. It is a free pattern on Ravelry or on their website. It's a great first sock pattern because it draws diagrams of the sock so you know exactly which parts you're knitting when. And it really it's a simple sock, but you end up with a nice wearable cushy sock that you would love for house socks. You could probably knit them if you used a sturdier yarn in boot socks as well. I'm not sure that I would use well, the merino cashmere nylon you could certainly use for boot socks, because it has a little bit of nylon in it. I'm not sure that I would use 100% superwash merino for boot socks because my concern is that they would rub, and not only might they felt, but they also just might wear holes faster. So, I mean, it is superwash merino, but even superwash merino has its limits if it's being really rubbed and tattered and, you know. So, yeah. So that's my Socktober fest going on. I also actually am knitting another pair of socks that I can't show you, but that is a sample for knit picks. So I have a third pair of socks going, and if I can finish some of this stuff this week, next week I might cast on a fourth pair of socks because I still need to knit socks for my niece and nephew. So, lots of socks in Socktober, and actually I've also pulled out my woolen socks to wear for the last couple weeks because it has been, so I wear socks in my house mostly year round because it does get a little chilly even when we're running, like in the summer, even when it's super hot, we run the air conditioning because otherwise it's like super humid and sticky. And so my feet often get cold, so I'm usually wearing socks. But I have started to pull out my warmer wool pairs now that the house is a little cooler and the temperatures are changing. And I am reminded how much I love hand knit socks, and specifically how much I love hand knit, hand spun socks. And I know I have at least 2 or 3 skeins of Corriedale that I have spun up for sock yarn and hoarded for myself rather than putting them in my Etsy shop. And so I was like, oh, maybe next month I should knit myself some hand spun socks. So that might be next on deck. And I don't always knit socks super often, but when I do, I remember how much I love them. And I think the reason that I don't knit a ton of socks anymore is because I have an overflowing sock drawer and I can only knit socks for so many people in my life who will wear them and enjoy them. I could knit charity socks. I'll have to think about that because that would actually be really good, because I am sure anyone who is cold would love a pair of warm wool socks for the winter. But so I just don't knit socks that often, but every time I do, I am sort of charmed by them. And since I have small feet, they're a relatively quick project. Okay, sip of tea. Let's talk about spinning, and then I will get to the giveaway, which is also spinning adjacent. So for the past couple weeks, I have been working on a bright green bump of fiber that I got while I was on the Kansas City yarn crawl. It is from Bonkers Fiber, who is a dyer out of Lawrence, Kansas, and she dyed it in conjunction with Yarn Barn, which is a big yarn store in Lawrence, Kansas, that also does a ton of weaving and weaving equipment and spinning and spinning equipment. It's a great resource. They are celebrating their 50th anniversary this year, and they coordinated with a lot of local dyers to create colorways in celebration of that. And the colorway that I picked up was New Growth. It was on Tarhi, which is soft and springy and lovely. And this is what it came out like. So it is just a bright green. It's got a little bit of like swampy yellows almost in there. And then it's got some darker greens and a little bit of lighter green. It's a little hard to read on here. It's just bright. It is neon highlighter bright. And actually I spun this for a friend of mine who is a green lover but could not go on most of the yarn crawl with us. So basically this just needs a bath. It will plump up. It's probably going to be a DK weight because sport to DK seems to be my default lately. And it is just gorgeous and squishy and super soft. And I'm going to, even though we live in the same town, we have not been seeing each other too much because of COVID. So I think actually what I want to do is I'm going to wash this as soon as I am done here. And then I am going to dry it for a day or two and then get it in the mail to her. So maybe she'll have it by the end of the week. And hopefully she has not been watching the last couple episodes of the podcast. She kind of skips a bunch and then catches up on a bunch and then skips a bunch and then catches up on a bunch. And I'm hoping she won't see this before it arrives. But if she does, then I guess she'll know it's coming. So that is the spin that I finished. I do have a current spin on the wheel. I showed it to you last week. The fiber is from Kumasi and it's BFL, and it is in kind of, I'm looking at it, I can see it from right here. It's browns and purples and teals, and it's really pretty. It's got lots of white space, and it's dyed kind of it almost looks a little bit frosted, and I think that's going to be a really pretty colorway, and that one will go in my shop, although this one will not. So let's talk about the giveaway. You probably won't be surprised when I do a giveaway like I have done in the past. I was trying to think of something new and special and different, and I didn't come up with anything horribly inspiring. So the way I do my giveaways is thus. I have a gorgeous braid of fiber from Hello Yarn, and this is called Higgly Piggly, and it was one of the colorways earlier this year. I think it was April's colorway, and it is on a wool, bamboo, and silk base. And I can't remember what the wool is. I can't remember if it's merino, but I know it is a 80% wool. It is 10% bamboo, which is viscose, and a 10% tussa silk. And the bamboo and silk are what give it these kind of streaky bits that is also going to make it look a little bit frosted when I'm done. And it's in all of these rich fall colors. I almost wanted to get a sweater quantity of this. I mean, it's got some lavenders, but it's also got some golds and kind of oranges. It's got some reds. It's got some navy. It's got some black. And it's got like little bits where there's a little bit of teal here and a little bit of green. And it's just, it is a gorgeous colorway. So the way I do my giveaways is if you are a spinner and you would like this fiber, you may have this fiber and I will just package it up along with some other goodies that I have, some tea, some treats for Halloween, and maybe some other things that I have. I might have a project bag that I might include with this. So if you are a spinner and would like to spin the fiber yourself, it is yours. If you are not a spinner, or if you would prefer that I spin it, I will spin it for you. This delays the shipping of the package by approximately a week to a week and a half. So I want to put that out there up front. If you decide that you want me to spin it for you, I have to spin it. And that will take me, by the time I spin all the singles, ply it, and wash it and dry it so that I can then put it in a package to you, it will take me about a week and a half. So caveat, it won't ship right away, but it will ship within a week and a half or so. And so you'll have it in plenty of time for the holidays. And yeah. So, the prompt is, go ahead and leave me a comment here on my YouTube video, and I will select one winner using the random number generator. I will select that right before I podcast next week. So you basically have from the time this goes up, which is around midnight, Monday, October 18th, till about, and I am in the central time zone, till about noon or so on Monday, the 18 and 7 is 25. So about noon on the 25th to comment, and then I will run the random number generator and pick. Comment, what should I ask you for? I'll just say, tell me either one of your favorite things about the podcast, or tell me something you'd like to see me do more. Because as I celebrate 350 episodes, I want to thank you for joining me, but I also want to know what you'd like to see more of so that I can change things up in the coming year. So that is the prize. I will pick, as I said, I will pick using random number generator. I will contact you. That's when you'll tell me whether you want the fiber or you want, I guess you could leave that in your comment if you want. But I'd also love to hear your ideas for the podcast. So let me know and I will contact you if you are the winner, and then you'll have your choice. And of course, if you choose that you want the fiber will go out to you. The fiber in the package will go out to you within a day or so. When I receive your information. It will only take a little bit if I need to do some work before it gets to you. Some assembly required. So thank you for joining me for my 350th episode. I hope you have a wonderful week ahead, and I will say until I see you next week, happy knitting, happy spinning, happy sipping. Don't forget to leave a comment, and I'll see you next week. Bye.